You know, there are some places on Earth that seem to hold entire worlds within their borders, places of just staggering beauty and, at the same time, heartbreaking tragedy, of incredible wealth right next to desperate poverty. Lebanon is one of those places. It's a story of paradox, a nation that has touched unbelievable highs and endured devastating lows, sometimes all at once.
For a while there, in the 20th century, its capital, Beirut, was a global icon. They called it the Paris of the Middle East. It was the sun-drenched hub for finance, for high fashion, for intellectual life. It was a beacon of glamour, so stable they even called it the Switzerland of the Middle East. It was a place where cultures and capital just flowed freely.
And then this. A collapse so total, so catastrophic, that the World Bank has called it one of the worst economic crises the world has seen in over 150 years. A complete freefall into darkness that has left its people struggling for the most basic things. So, the big question is, how? How does a nation with such a vibrant history, so much potential, end up so completely broken? To really understand the tragedy of modern Lebanon, we have to go back. We have to look at its very foundations, at the paradoxes built into its core. You see, this story doesn't start in the 20th century. Oh no. It's written in stone, layered over thousands and thousands of years. Lebanon's geography put it at a global crossroads, and that made it a prize for pretty much every great empire in history.
And I mean this legacy is deep. We're talking about cities like Byblos, which has been continuously inhabited for over 7,000 years. It was from these shores that the Phoenicians launched their ships and gave the world the alphabet. Empires rose and fell right here. Romans, Byzantines, Arab caliphates, Crusaders, Ottomans, they all came, they all ruled, and they all left their mark, creating this incredibly rich mosaic of cultures and faiths.
Okay, so fast forward. The Ottoman Empire falls, there's a period of French rule, and then an independent Lebanon emerges in 1943. And it was founded on this really radical idea, a bold but really fragile political experiment designed to manage its incredible diversity.
The system is called confessionalism. So what does that mean? Well, to put it simply, power isn't divided up based on political ideas, but by religious group. It's a formal, constitutional deal to make sure every major community gets a seat at the table. A noble idea, you could say, born from a desire to keep the peace. And when you look at the landscape, you start to see why they felt they needed a system like this. Lebanon officially recognizes 18 different religious sects. That makes it one of the most diverse countries in the entire Middle East. The challenge was huge. How do you make every single one of these communities feel represented in one state? So the solution they came up with was this unwritten national pact in 1943. It laid out the rules. The top jobs were divided up. The president would always be a Maronite Christian, the prime minister a Sunni Muslim, and the speaker of parliament a Shia Muslim. And for a while, this delicate balance actually held. But here's the fatal flaw. The system was frozen in time, based on a census from the 1930s. It was dangerously rigid and totally unable to adapt to a changing world. And soon, pressures from both inside and outside the country would test this fragile experiment to its breaking point and then shatter it completely. The golden age was about to end in fire. A huge turning point was the arrival of the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. After being kicked out of Jordan, they relocated to Lebanon. Their armed presence and the attacks they launched against Israel from southern Lebanon just completely upended the country's delicate political balance. Then, in 1975, the country spiraled into a brutal civil war. On one side, you had a coalition of mostly Christian militias, and on the other, a joint force of the PLO and allied Lebanese Muslim and left-wing groups. The battle lines weren't just between armies, they were between neighbors. It tore the very fabric of society apart.
The cost was just staggering. 15 years of fighting, an estimated 150,000 people dead, nearly 1 million forced from their homes. The vibrant economy was destroyed, and the Paris of the Middle East became a global symbol of urban warfare and ruin.
And even when the guns finally fell silent in 1990, peace didn't exactly mean freedom. The war just gave way to decades of foreign occupation. Syria was pulling the political strings from Damascus, while Israel occupied a so-called security zone in the south. True independence, it was still just an illusion. So this post-war era, this is what set the stage for the current catastrophe. The seeds of today's collapse, the corruption, the sectarian gridlock, the idea that no one is ever held accountable, they were all planted back then. A new political class emerged, many of them former warlords who just swapped their fatigues for suits.
enriching themselves while the state crumbled around them.
By 2019, the people had just had enough. For the first time ever, huge protests erupted across the country that weren't about one sect against another. No, this was about the people, all of them, versus the entire ruling class. They had this famous chant, "All of them means all of them," demanding an end to the whole corrupt system.
But it was too late. The nation's financial system, basically a house of cards built on debt, finally imploded. And the result was catastrophic. More than 80% of the population was pushed into poverty. A once-thriving middle class was just wiped out.
The national currency, the Lebanese pound, became nearly worthless. The official devaluation was 90%, but on the black market, it was even worse. Think about that. People's life savings, their pensions, their salaries, all of it just vanished into thin air.
And then came the moment that was like a physical manifestation of the state's failure. 2,750 tons of explosive material, just left unsecured in the heart of the capital for years, detonated. The Beirut port blast was one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in history. It was a tragedy born of the exact same corruption and negligence the people had been screaming about in the streets.
After so much devastation, you have to wonder, how can a nation even keep going? But this is Lebanon. And the story of its state isn't the only story. There is also the story of its people.
You see, hope lies in a global diaspora that's actually much larger than the country's population, sending money home to keep families afloat. It lives in a culture so powerful that its food, its music, and its art are celebrated all over the world. And it endures in a resilient people who, time and time again, have poured into the streets to demand a better future.
Which leaves us with this profound, unanswered question for Lebanon's future. The great experiment, the power-sharing deal, has led to total paralysis and ruin. The state has failed its people in almost every single way you can imagine. So the question is, can that enduring spirit, that spirit of culture, of resilience, of connection, can it be enough to build something new from the ashes?